2 lifelong friends, 1 local establishment. The hidden truth is out there, and we're going to talk about it. What happens in the bar no longer stays in the bar. This is Conspiracy Beerists.
Hello and welcome to Conspiracy Beerists. Now, this time out, we sit down and talk about the granddaddy of all conspiracies, the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now, everybody has heard or has an opinion about this conspiracy, and it's a big one, so it shouldn't come as any surprise that there's lots to cover on this episode. But just to sort of set the stage a little bit, when JFK became president, he almost immediately ruffled the feathers of the old guard, the good old boys network, the power behind the power, if you will. He was young, he was brash, he was transparent, though he did have his secrets. Predominantly, he was open with the public about just about anything, and that was something that a lot of the guard in Washington didn't take too kindly to.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
So Brian and I sat down and we had quite a lengthy conversation that's going to actually take up 2 episodes of Conspiracy Beerists. So part 1, we sort of threw out there a whole lot of different conspiracy theories surrounding what exactly happened and who exactly was involved in that assassination on November 22nd, 1963.
But before we get into the JFK one, I wanted to throw a couple small ones at you.
All right.
We'll be totally unprepared for either one of it. I just wanted to get your thoughts off the cuff. First one, we sort of talked about in the first podcast, and it was the flat Earth theory.
Okay.
Do you or don't you believe it, or
see the
put
reason
any
why
credence?
I would not believe in it is because I don't want to trust what everybody says and what they've been teaching you. But I really don't know if it is or not. Can't really tell.
Hey,
and either way,
have you been on a plane?
Yeah, snakes on a plane.
Yes, exactly. Snakes on the mother plane.
Well, dude, there's so much videos where this guy shoots a rocket up and it actually stops mid-flight, but it hits something and it goes boop boop, like there was water in a fucking pillow or something.
Do you think that video could have been faked?
No, not that one.
Huh?
Not that one.
No? Wow.
Did you see it?
No, I haven't. I don't believe for a second the Earth is flat because I've been in a plane and you see what's called line of sight.
Right.
Which, if people have watched Independence Day, have heard that phrase, line of sight, which is what they have for satellites. You can't have one satellite on this side of the Earth, one satellite on this side of the Earth, and talk to each other because the Earth arcs. So they have to have positional. Line of sight. But when you're in a plane, you can see that.
Right, but when you're in a plane, supposedly if the Earth was round, the plane would be nose diving constantly, right?
Maybe.
That's
well,
what
not.
some of them
You're
say.
not going to be that much. I know people can't see it on the podcast, but
I mean, there's a lot of evidence both ways, but I don't really care whether or not it's round or.
I don't either. It was just a fun one I wanted to start
It's a
with.
big one.
Before.
There's a lot of people that think.
Yeah, if somebody ever believed in it and wanted to come on this podcast and try to convince you and I both.
Yeah, that'd be all right. But
So-
they say that water, what is it? It keeps its flatness or whatever, finds the level. Water stays level,
Right.
so that's why it's there's a lot of arguments about it.
Well, maybe we can come back to it someday. I just wanted to start off with a quote, lighthearted one.
Right.
So, because we're going to talk about the JFK assassination, the granddaddy, if you will,
Big event.
of conspiracy theories. So, before we deep dive into it, what do you think your overall views of the JFK assassination? Are you firmly convinced that it wasn't a lone gunman?
Yes, it's never a lone gunman in anything. There's always someone else behind the scenes or helping. Even with these school shootings, they said that Sandy Hook kid, he was just a little skinny twerp, carried in AR-15, a bunch of other guns, a backpack that was like 60 pounds or something. I mean, he could do it probably, but there was a guy that called in and said that he's a trained SEAL that couldn't do that and kill all those kids. But this little dinky dude. Plus, there was a film of the Sandy Hook where they were chasing somebody out in the woods. There's like 2 or 3 different people getting chased out in the woods, and he was still in a school shooting.
So you don't think Oswald
No.
had any kind of training?
Yeah, I think he had training because he was in the army.
Do you think he was involved at all?
See, I don't know. Because the one I seen last night, they said that they went into the movie theater, grabbed him, but there was already voiceovers on the radio, on police radio, saying his description. So they went in there, grabbed him, no evidence whatsoever on this guy. But before that happened, he was talking to the CIA, or had a friend in the CIA. I can't remember who it was. If it was that Hunt guy, but the CIA guy decided, the picture of him holding his passport and the gun, it's a famous picture.
Right.
Why would he do that? Why would he take a picture like that? I think he took a picture like that so they could fucking frame him.
So you're more in the lines that you think he was a patsy.
Oh, for sure he was. I mean, he might have had something, he might have known about it. But then Jack Ruby worked for Nixon like a while, I can't remember how long before that happened. And then Jack Ruby goes in and shoots.
Was it Nixon or was it Bush? Because I had
Nixon.
One of the things that I watched said he had something to do with the Bush family.
That might have been. But supposedly he was with Hunt. Oh, man, dude, there's so much.
Well, while you look for it, one of the...
Howard Hunt, yeah.
Yeah, Howard Hunt.
Howard Hunt, yeah.
Of, Watergate fame.
Right.
There was one video that you had sent me that, for me, it was a deep dive. Maybe not for you, but...
Like over the edge?
They talked about
really.
a lot of the Howard Hunt thing, and they pretty much mapped out everything from him, why he got in so much trouble with Watergate because of the stuff that he wouldn't do.
Well, he was
And the stuff that
like
he
the
did
most
do.
famous burglar from
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
Well, he went to jail, and he kept pressuring Nixon for $1 million to get him out of jail.
Right.
And he was talking to the media saying that
Said, I want $1 million not to say what I know.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a CIA killer or whatever.
Right.
Well, George Bush's grandpappy.
Adolphus or whatever his name is.
Yeah. I got it down here. But he was the one that owned the bank.
Right.
They are the ones that paid Howard Hunt that $1 million. That's what this one video said.
Yeah, but he didn't. It was his partner that
Right.
allegedly did.
Right. Yeah, it's all alleged. But I know George Bush Sr. had everything in the world to do with it.
So, before we backtrack into all the theories, is that what you believe, is that Bush and the CIA connection is what it was?
Yes, I do. I mean, I don't know the reason why they would do it. I know he was trying to change the NWO, New World Order, and not
For life.
and get that over with. But then George Sr. gets the presidency, and he wants the new NWO. He talks about the New World Order and 9/11, 1991 or something. And still no New World Order right now. Unless it's going, we don't know about it.
So you sent me that video of the JFK speech, which we're going to have parts of it on this podcast. Do you think, like they stated in some of the reading material and videos, that he knew something or people were after him?
Oh, I'm sure.
Because one thing because I asked people for if they wanted to say anything about what we're talking about, and the guy we know, Dave, gave me this big long sermon, which isn't a surprise for Dave, but the brass tacks was he thought that he didn't necessarily say the CIA, he just thought that because he had stated there are dark forces trying to take over the world,
Right.
that was what was going to...
Shadow government.
Right.
Deep state. Cabal.
He didn't say deep state,
Right.
but that's... I mean, I guess I could read what he said.
Dave?
Yeah.
Oh.
Then it ended up being something about Notre Dame, so... So, I'll play the clips of that speech.
Okay.
Because this is the one conspiracy that I do think there is something to. Because I think it's odd that they were supposed to release all this information about...
Just recently?
Huh?
A couple years ago?
Like 2016.
Yeah.
And they still haven't.
Right.
So, all the Warren Report stuff and everything, and it's just...
Why wouldn't they, That's what he was talking about, letting everybody be transparent. Letting the American people know what was going on and everything. Well, they're not letting us know anything. They never will.
So what do you think about the... kind of dance around everywhere here, but the whole shooting in Dealey Plaza. You seen the Zapruder footage.
Right.
I mean, everybody has.
Right.
And his face exploding.
Yes.
And everyone says that's proof that was from the front.
But they stole his body like 3 times and did some shit with it.
Right. Well, I've seen that in videos,
Right.
but it's been proven that your face wouldn't explode like that if you're shot from the front.
Right, it would go backwards.
It's the bullet coming through and
Right.
exploding when it comes out. And I'm not saying that was, coming from the...
It was supposed to rain that day, and they were going to have the convertible down, or convertible up,
Right.
and they decided not to. And why would they? I mean, that's part of the conspiracy, I guess.
Well, one thing that I remember hearing a long time ago that none of these videos that I watched preparing for this mentioned was the radio issues they had,
Oh, really?
like, leading up to that point. like cops were trying to talk, he's going past Sector 5, whatever, and the TVs quit working.
Huh. Go figure, Epstein.
I mean, that
That's what happens. It's like everything is. They think the American people are just stupid, and they won't catch on to things like they do. They create it. And did you hear about the part about the Spotlight magazine?
No.
Well, there's this magazine called Spotlight, I guess, and Richard Helms was the CIA director for Nixon, and he claimed that CIA assassin Ed E. Howard Hunt was in Dallas the day of the murder. Well, Hunt sued the magazine for slander.
Yeah, I did hear that then. I just forgot the name of the magazine.
And during the trial, he couldn't remember where he was at, just like George Bush and just like Nixon did the same thing. They didn't know where they were at that moment. And he couldn't come up with anything, so he lost the case, and which means that the magazine was innocent for saying that he was the murderer.
Yeah, he lost the case.
Right.
I just forgot the name of the magazine. So...
Yeah, Moita Lorenz, that same chick.
So you think Oswald was a patsy? Do you think he actually took shots, or do you think...
No, I don't think he took shots.
Because they've done lots of video proof for that onlooker Carcana rifle he had, saying people couldn't get that many bolt-action shots off in that little of time.
Seems like a lot of people tried it. Seems like a lot of people have tried that.
Tried, but it's cocking it, aiming a moving target.
I guarantee there's more than one person. It's like the Las Vegas thing that happened not too long ago. They blamed it on one dude. This other guy's got a video where it's showing the helicopters, and it shows the flight responder or whatever. I think where it tells you all these things that are flying around. Well, everything was down, but there's still helicopters flying around with their lights. So he's saying that it's helicopters that were shooting everybody, and that's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I don't know about that,
but I don't think it was that guy.
So let's talk about the Bush angle then, since that seems to be the one that you subscribe to the most.
I do. He was in the secret society.
Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones. Well, there's a bunch of other people, and they all that were inside this. William Calder was director of the CIA. He was one of them. And George Bush, and then a couple other people. But what they said this Skull and Bones is a bunch of... It's brotherly trusting where they do gay shit inside coffins.
Yeah, I seen all that in one of the videos.
And then if, they can bribe them saying, we'll tell everybody you did this if you don't do this or whatever.
What they said in the video was they all masturbate in front of each other as a signal of ultimate trust in each other.
Right. That's a little goofy.
Not my bag, but...
Skull and boners.
So, do you believe the part of the conspiracy where the one couple videos actually, authors, said they were kind of grooming Bush even from, in Skull and Bones in college.
Yes.
To where he got his oil company...
Which was a spy spot.
I see when they got a little off base with me on that one because that seemed.
Was it called Zalpart or something like that? Zalpart oil or something.
Something like that. And I looked up the name of what that word meant in Spanish. And it means like shoes or something like that. So I kind of didn't buy that.
But that
part
was
of it.
for the Bay of Pigs, right?
Right.
And then some people would say the name Bay of Pigs for the actual assassination. Like, that was the code name for that. Some of them would use. Alan Dulles was one, and here's
which is a name everybody
brings up
all the time.
See, actually, that was the first time I ever heard it. Was yesterday.
You had mentioned a few minutes ago that Bush and Nixon and other people had mentioned different stories of what they were doing that day, November 3rd, 1963. Why were they in Dallas?
Right. And
sometime they gave an excuse at one point, and then another point they said they weren't there at all.
Okay, this was in 1975, the Senate Select Committee on Assassinations wanted to see the role of the CIA in the JFK assassination. They bring out the memo that they spotlight about the Spotlight magazine that was innocent about versus Hunt slander lawsuit, and that Hunt was in Dallas that day. William Calder was director of CIA at the time, ran his mouth saying, "Yep, Hunt was there all right. Hunt and Bush were in charge of the shooters, but they were taking orders. They weren't actually in charge." And he said he was cooperating with the committee. They were taking orders from civilians like Alan Dulles and the Rockefellers. Then Calder was immediately fired, and George Bush, supposedly with no CIA experience, was appointed head of CIA, even though he was in the CIA 10 years earlier, but he claims it was a different George Bush.
I giggled about that when I got to that point of that one video.
And then George Bush ended the CIA cooperation with the committee and effectively shut down the investigation.
So, going off sort of the deep end of that angle, what's the point of him running for Senate twice and losing twice?
I don't know. Because they say he got beat up or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yet, to reward him for losing...
They wanted to get him in the White House somehow, I think.
Right, but...
Probably because he was just a skull and bonesman. Bonersman. But,
it's just... I can see everybody's thing about the Bush angle.
You don't get the Bush one, huh?
I can see it, I just don't buy it. And I'll wait and give what I actually think is behind everything as we move on. It's just all those the dots that people connect with that looks logical.
Right.
Somebody
I just think he's crooked.
Somebody that's that public rarely gets away with something like that. But that ended up making him vice president. Oh, that's the other thing Dave's saying, and I'm sorry for backtracking here.
No problem.
But he sort of agreed with you on the Bush thing. And he said he also thinks, since Bush was vice president, he thinks Reagan was supposed to be assassinated.
He was,
when he got shot.
Like 2 inches from his heart.
Right? He goes, why would some public person in the public be able to get that close to the president with a firearm, able to at least get any shots off?
Well, they were planning on it, right? But yeah, well, I heard that Reagan said that he would never ever have a man from the secret society be in his office or whatever, and then here comes George Bush.
I think the thing with Reagan and Bush, and I'd have to go back and refresh my memory, but I think a lot of why he chose Bush as his vice president was to get the staunch Republican faction of the party.
Right. Do you think it was really up to him?
What I think, and because it happened in history, and we're getting sidetracked a little bit here, but back with FDR, people knew his health wasn't good.
Right.
So when it came to him running for the fourth term, they're like, you need to find somebody that could take over your job.
Right.
Because he didn't want, initially, he never even met Truman. before he chose him for his vice president.
Huh.
And it's the Democratic Party or whoever was the bigwig back then said, you need somebody as your vice president that can step in for you in case something happens. And lo and behold, because I was like, Adlai Stevenson or something was his vice president before. I'm probably totally getting that name wrong, but Truman gets selected to be his vice president for the 4th term, and boom, a year later he's president because FDR died.
Right. Huh.
So I think that's how Bush ended up being Reagan's vice president, is because people like the heavyweights of the Republican Party is like, okay, you're a little progressive, an actor, yada 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 for us. We want somebody that we can count on to be in there with you, and that's how Bush ended up. We'll support you if you agree to have him be your vice president. Essentially, what you're saying is you believe the CIA had a hand in on.
For sure. George Bush was one of the main deals.
Right.
That's why I think the CIA had something.
Now, why do you think that is? Because he wouldn't fund their
I don't know why
anti-Castro regime.
Right, yes. This,
I mean, we talked before we started recording about the lady that the CIA had dating Castro.
Morlita Lorenz. Okay, it says, during the trial with that Hunt guy and the magazine, Richard Helms, the CIA director, testified in court that Morlita Lorenz was a CIA agent who he knew of and that worked for CIA. She had a plot to assassinate Castro, and it turned into a movie, My Little Assassin.
So, one thing that I seen with her, she said that they sent Oswald down to that anti-Castro group that she was in.
Really?
And he was supposed to be, according to her, Hunt, and Oswald were supposed to get in a car, drive to Dallas, and do something big.
Right. Big event.
And she claims she got cold feet when they got there and left.
Mm-hmm. Here's that story, Dan. Well, she testified. She said she was a CIA Operation 40.
Right.
1960 to 1963, carrying out terror operations in Cuba. In November of 1963, she started working with CIA operative Frank Sturgis. Well, he told her to pack her bags, they have a mission. They drove to Dallas in 2 station wagons full of men and guns. There was a knock on the door, and it was Howard Hunt. Came in, handed out maps and money. Lorenz left because it was crazy. Flew back to Miami. The next day, she found out JFK was shot and killed. So that's craziness.
It's just...
Oh, and then Frank Sturgis went up to her and said, "You should have been there. We made history. We killed the president."
Right. Which I don't know if I buy that part of it or not.
I don't know really why you would say that.
And we'll leave it there for now and conclude this conversation next week on Conspiracy Beerists, where we give you what we think, what we believe is the actual conspiracy or what actually happened in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963. Don't forget to subscribe to future podcasts and like us on Facebook at Conspiracy Beerists 911. And let us know your thoughts. If you have a thought about the JFK assassination and the conspiracy surrounding it. So until next week, remember, the truth is out there. You just have to know where to look.
WLLP, Spock Rock Radio.